In One Piece, many Jolly Rogers incorporate a smiling or grinning skull, which is kind of like a flip on the real world historical versions. And obviously One Piece is a whimsical, adventurous story with a unique spin on pirates, and Oda's done something pretty interesting with what they represent in a story. In certain cultures, a smiling or grinning skull is a joyful symbol of renewal and fearless acceptance of death. And in One Piece, pirates raise their Jolly Roger as they courageously put their life on the line in pursuit of their dreams. The skull owns mortality, and the smile in a way owns death, as they need to overcome their fear of it should they go and pursue their dreams. No obstacle shall stand in their way. I also think in a way that the Jolly Roger mocks the current understanding of what death actually is. We know in One Piece that inherited will is a major theme in the story, and a crucial component of that cycle is death, which sort of acts as the fertilizer that keeps dreams going. Anyways, before I get into this, I've read some of the comments in my previous video wondering if my visuals were AI, and I thought, you know what, fair enough, because with the rapid advancements in AI, that is bound to happen, but I can assure you that a lot of effort goes into producing these videos, and that is part of the reason why it can take me a while to upload them. The process itself is almost always quite draining, and it can be a huge pain, but that struggle is honestly worth it, and it's what keeps me sharp. If I just clicked generate and called it a day, my brain would probably unwire a bunch of its problem-solving capabilities related to these tasks, and I'll slowly be incapacitating myself to be useless without the help of a robot.
All these useless people. The problem is more what to do with them, and how will they find some sense of meaning in life when they are basically meaningless, worthless.
I will say though that I'm not entirely against AI, and I've made a video about it a while ago giving my thoughts about how certain automation tools can be of benefit, and that my main concern with AI is in regards to its procurement and who controls it and what it's being used for. But since making this video, I learned a lot more about the story behind OpenAI, and I read all about the concerns of a brave whistleblower that were published regarding copyright violations, and I highly encourage people to look into this, because the only reason AI is so advanced and able to mimic styles that we're so familiar with is because, according to critics and whistleblowers, these companies have been unlawfully stealing creators' works and training on them. And how convenient is it that before this whistleblower Suchair was able to take OpenAI to court over this, he passed under what appears to be very shady circumstances. Alright. This will be more of a casual, not really structured video. I wanted to use it as an opportunity to take you behind the scenes while talking about some One Piece ideas and theories that I had. And later I'll tell you about some of my plans for the future of this channel and where I plan to go. Also, by the way, if you are a 3D artist and you use Blender and would like to use this Jolly Roger asset, you can find a download link to this Blender file in the description. Actually, I'll make it an FBX as well. So there'll be a few file formats. So I just want to go over a few interesting theories, a few interesting ideas and patterns that I've observed in One Piece. So in chapter 142, Dr. Hiralik describes the Jolly Roger as a symbol of absolute faith, and that the flag rejects impossibilities. And this is one of my favorite chapters, by the way, in One Piece, because it goes into some really cool concepts that have helped me in my personal life, and I've gone over it in a previous video a while back. In this chapter, Dr. Hiralik declares that he hoisted this flag against all diseases in the world, believing all of them could be cured. Just like the traveler from the west, which he describes himself in the story that he tells Chopper, where he healed his heart disease after walking by a mountain of cherry blossoms. Drum Island is a winter island, so having the symbol of a blooming cherry blossom tree in such a setting was truly a testament to Dr. Hiralik's philosophy of rejecting impossibilities. Also, this parting gift to Chopper may have foreshadowed the closing curtains of this story. I mean that in terms of both what the power source may have looked like in its final form, the dawn, and also just the fact that it all ends in unity. Dr. Hiralik stated that the hearts of the people in his country and the government are all sick, and that he believed that the beauty of the cherry blossoms could heal them, which is why he spent much of his time trying to recreate the beauty that he saw on the island in the far west. This illness that Dr. Hiralik was referring to in regards to his country and the government was not so much an illness of the body, but an illness of the mind and heart. He wanted to awaken the spirit in everyone. This is something that is echoed in every single one of Luffy's footsteps. In Alabasta, he brings back the rain and water, which stops the war and ends up uniting the people. In Skypiea, he defeats Enlil and returns the sound of the Grand Bell, signaling the end of the war between the Skypians and Shandia. In Fishman Island, he eliminates the mechanisms that sow division between humans and fishmen. In Dressrosa, he defeats Doflamingo and unites loved ones who had forgotten each other. And in Wano, Kaido's reign was described as a 20-year-long winter that had settled over the country, which Luffy brings an end to. After winter comes spring, which is the season cherry blossoms bloom. We also have the defeat of a blue dragon and the rise of a pink one, which I thought was quite fitting. I think it's very interesting that Dr. Hiraluk saw cherry blossoms as the antidote for a divided country and a sick heart. The color of the Mother Flame was recently revealed, and this was a huge revelation. I previously thought that the Mother Flame was either white, like Nika's hair, or orange-red, like the Lunarian flames. But having the flame be pink helps connect a lot of dots, as the original premise that I'm going with is that the sun is the spirit and heart of the world. And given that Luffy in many ways symbolizes the role of the sun, and I actually think he could be the sun itself, I think the fact that Hiraluk saw cherry blossoms as the solution to heal the heart of the people might give us more insight as to what the coming dawn could potentially look like. In my previous video, one of the ideas I explored for how the dawn would look like was a ring of fire, which I kind of just pulled out of my ass because I thought it looked cool. But another idea I had on the shelf was a burning tree, because I was thinking about the burning bush from the book of Exodus, which describes Moses' encounter with God through a bush that burns without damaging the tree itself. During Wano, we were introduced to Ryu. It's a term for advanced armament haki. It means flowing cherry blossoms. It's referring to willpower, energy, and spirit. So perhaps cherry blossoms could also be used interchangeably with the symbol of the heart, the spirit, and dreams, because they represent the cycle metaphorically, blooming every spring, following their absence in the winter. And perhaps that is why the spirit is called the mother flame. Mother is the wellspring of renewal, carrying the cycle forward. In Japan, the Sakura represents rebirth, and cherry blossoms fall at their peak, and the death and decay part, the fall, is actually rather beautiful. We see it as beautiful and necessary for their return in the spring. In Japanese symbolism, the West frequently represents the realm of the dead, or the path or journey of the soul, which makes Dr. Hiraluk's story particularly resonant, because he traveled to the far west when he was close to death's gate, yet returned revived. So I'm curious about the location this occurred. When Dr. Kureha asked why he wouldn't simply return instead of trying to make cherry blossoms bloom on a winter island, Hiraluk didn't give an answer and just ignored her. Interestingly, his healing happened 38 years ago, which would make it the same year that God Valley was erased. If God Valley was the place where this phenomena occurred, it could explain why he did not return. But another location of interest would be where Whitebeard had his last conversation with Roger, because it was a really kind of misty, obscured place, and all we could see was that they were surrounded by cherry blossoms. I'm not really sure how significant, if significant at all, this pattern could be, but I'm curious if these threads of patterns between the West and spirit and souls, and then the spring and winter, etc., all potentially ties into the reason why people from winter or snowy countries never sleep. So if I play around in thought with ideas of the West, winter, spring, and cherry blossoms, some other interesting patterns appear. So the West is associated with soul, death, and the end of cycles, and we can see this in One Piece to an extent. The scholar that Vegapunk mentioned, who was trying to study the soul's weight, was from the West Blue. The traveler from the West in Dr. Hiraluk's story, Rock's hometown being in God Valley, though it's not confirmed where the rest of the Davy clan came from, but given God Valley is in the West, they might all have a special connection to the West, as does Luffy to the East, which would make sense because Luffy is the polar opposite of Blackbeard. And Ivankov mentioned that Dragon always faces the East when thinking about his family, and the East holds significant positive symbolism in Japanese culture, primarily because of Japan's geographical location, east of the Asian mainland, so it is one of the first places on Earth to see the sunrise, and hence why Japan is the land of the rising sun. And this association with the sunrise links the East to new beginnings, life, energy, and the divine. So Luffy being born in the East and starting his journey from the East Blue is very fitting, considering he's the one bringing the dawn, and everywhere he goes he liberates people, He brings joy and happiness. He restores order and balance, etc. So anyhow, dreams, spirit, flame, heart, and now also cherry blossoms. They all seem to be interchangeable. And if flowing cherry blossoms translates to Ryu Haki, then maybe instead of cherry blossoms, we could just say Haki. Because Haki is spirit or willpower, energy flow. So I wonder if the mother flame is willpower made visible. We have different types of Haki that are known by different names depending on the cultures in the story. For example, observation Haki, we learned in Skypiea, is mantra or mantra, which means mindnet. Armament Haki, we learned an alternative name for that in Wano, is called Ryu, which means flowing Sakura or flowing cherry blossoms. But as for Supreme King Haki, we have not run into any alternative names yet. We have alternative translations like Conqueror Haki, but not an official alternative title in the story that comes from another culture. And maybe Oda is saving that for, endgame. But I think it would be very useful to know if there is a definition that would explain what king actually means, because it would have to mean something that Luffy resonates with, and Luffy does not resonate with the idea of a conqueror or ruler, which is what the current understanding of king is, and hence his point of difference between Blackbeard and Emu. They want to conquer, they want to rule, and that's what king means to them. And Luffy was also confused when Emmett apologized for failing to make him king right before unleashing Joy Boy's Haki, which interestingly, by the way, that Haki was so powerful that it was able to bring the current king, the fake king of the world, down to his knees. So to me, all of this further makes me lean more to the idea that Luffy is the human version of the sun itself. I also believe it's actually the treasure One Piece, because I think King during Joy Boy's era, or in his understanding, would have served a similar role to that of a god, but not in the sense of an isolated spiritual ruler, more like an energetic force anchoring freedom in the world without imposing limitations on free will, which is why I think that's what the sun is. And this just brings me to my last few points, is that I think the sun being restored sort of fulfills or completes everyone's dreams that they've set out to achieve, and the One Piece would be recognized as all those dreams united into a complete picture of what the Void Century's advanced society looked like, because it seems like everyone's dream, it all seems to work together. Like Sanji wants to see the all blue, but in order for him to see the all blue, it seems like the seas have to be connected, right? And Vegapunk wants to create an energy source that would supply the whole world with endless energy, and Luffy wants his friends to be free and never go hungry, etc. Like everything will sort of come together. But another part of Vegapunk's dream, that he hopes for Punk Records to be a sea of information where humanity could go on to update it themselves and have access to information non-locally. To which Jinbei raised his concern that if everyone voiced their ideas, there's bound to be lots of conflict, which was a valid point, assuming this were to be a centralized system that would inevitably lead to a form of governance to maintain order, and that will lead to control. But I don't think Vegapunk was hinting at a centralized framework at all, but rather the opposite, decentralization. Vegapunk responded to Jinbei by suggesting that there cannot be progress if we worry about stuff like that. I don't think Oda is going down the path of an internet world wide web with computers and antennas, etc. I think that would be very out of place for the world of One Piece that already has far more impressive things like the Denden Mushi, etc. I think perhaps Punk Records could merely just be a prototype for what his main goal of creating a sun would achieve. I think the power source that existed in the past fulfilled this Punk Records role via the voice of all things, with observation Haki being the natural antenna that all beings have that would be able to, access this realm of information. Because mantra literally means mind web, mind net. All beings have this ability in One Piece, and it's innate in them. So I think we're heading towards a decentralized system of pure, unfiltered connection, which was probably the state of the world before the sun was destroyed. And Nika's heartbeat is felt through everyone. It sounds like a festival rhythm, as we saw in chapter 11:18. Everyone was able to hear it. So with the collapse of the false world order, and elites that run it, there could be made way for the voice of all things to be heard as a natural consequence of the sun being restored and its rhythm heard globally, like a pulse, which would probably also allow for telepathy, something depicted in stories of advanced beings and civilizations, etc. That could be the main underlying thing that unites everyone in One Piece at the end, because we know the story has to end in a form of unity, coming together. Luffy carries the unifying rhythm, and that's what he does. He brings people together. So I think the reason Vegapunk said to Jinbei that we have to move on from those kind of worries was because he understood that humanity was heading towards their true nature, which is everyone moving in unison, like a school of fish or a flock of birds all working together. There's no top-down control. This whole thing is not really too much of a stretch, I don't think. But yeah, before I wrap up this video, I wanted to say a few things regarding where I plan to go with my channel. So my channel is not really a One Piece channel. So far, most of my subscribers have come through my One Piece videos, which is great because I love making One Piece videos, and I will be making more in the future. It's an ongoing story and I'm super fascinated by it, but it will not be the focus of my channel. I will be uploading other things, and something else that I've been working on in my own time when I have spare time is I'm writing my own story, something I've always wanted to do. I love making, I want to say movies, but I don't have the time to make movies, but I love making content, and I love telling stories and stuff, cryptic stories, anything that gets you thinking in a way that you're not used to. I am a one-man army at the moment. I don't have editors, I don't have animators. I do everything myself, the scripting, the animating, the sound design, all that. So stay tuned for that. But yeah.